Well, hello. Once again, this is me, Leonard Wells, broadcasting as usual from Haslingden, north of Manchester, in the UK. This is Sunday, the 1st of August 2010, and I'm going to talk to you today about the EU and Turkey's admission to the EU. But as it is Sunday, I thought I would start by reading a passage from the good book. Many of you have got out of the habit of reading the good book. So it is only short, so please bear with me. It gets more interesting as we go along. This is in the opening pages. Glory to God Most High, full of grace and mercy. He created all, including man. To man he gave a special place in his creation. He honored man to be his agent, and to that end endued him with understanding, purified his affections, and gave him spiritual insight, so that man should understand nature, understand himself, and know God through his wondrous signs, and glorify him in truth, reverence, and unity. Isn't that a beautiful beginning? Isn't that a beautiful statement of where we are in time and space and the universe? And do you know, can you tell me where it comes from? It comes from the opening pages of the Holy Quran. Isn't that amazing? Doesn't it remind you of the Holy Bible? Did any of you know how the Quran begins? Many of us have irrational fears. We profess to be Christians, but many of us don't go to church. Here in Haslingden, very few people go to church, but a lot of people go to the mosques, particularly on a Friday. So, a lot of us fear what, in fact, shouldn't really give us cause to fear. In fact, the opposite ought to apply. We ought to realize that the Quran, the Holy Quran, has many, 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 many beautiful passages in it. And it is a book worth reading. Go and have a try. You'll be mildly surprised. You'll be very surprised. You'll be astonished. So now I'm going to talk to you about bringing Turkey into the EU. And many, many people all across Europe have this irrational fear that the moment we allow Turkey into the EU, there will be minarets in Geneva and in Paris and in London and Manchester. And there will be women in burqas wandering about around our streets and cities and towns and villages. But in fact, this is not the case, and it won't be the case, because for 2,000 years, we in Europe have been butchering each other by the millions. In that 2,000 years, 100 million of us have been killed in wars between ourselves. Now that we have all sat down, 27 countries, and signed the pledge in the EU, we will have, God willing, 2,000 years of peace. And in that time we can build and rebuild and refurbish everything that has been damaged and not done properly in the last 2,000 years. We can have high-speed trains from Glasgow and Edinburgh all the way down to Istanbul. We can have motorways and beautiful universities and a great way of life within the EU. People will be free to get on a train without a passport and travel all over this wonderful continent where all the brains of history have lived and performed wonderfully throughout history. We have made many mistakes. The slave trade was one of our big mistakes, and we suffered for it. The wars of the 20th century were probably our punishment for what we did in those wicked days. Now I'm just going to put this point of view to you, that rather than open the floodgates to the irrational fears that we have of Islam, bringing Turkey into the EU actually pushes the barriers of freedom and our protection further out, much, much further out into the Middle East, out beyond, into the same latitude and longitude as Russia, along the Black Sea. And why do I say that? Because once a country enters the EU, then all of its standards and its border controls and its police and infrastructure become westernized, and we have greater protection from things like the mafia and drugs, and we have much greater cooperation between our police forces, our criminal intelligences, and admittedly the military. We make mistakes. Some people may get arrested for crimes they've committed inadvertently in any country while living in another country. So we must learn and sit down and do these things properly. And this is the beauty of the EU, that we all meet on a regular basis and we talk together, not just make cheap capital from newspaper headlines by twisting the facts. So I want you to think about it. The Prime Minister recently said that it would be good if Turkey came into the EU. I say it so, although I'm just an ordinary citizen. But I truly, truly, truly believe in the long run it will be great for us. Once Turkey comes into the EU and other nations outside see how great life is here, perhaps they will come to ask. Perhaps the Ukraine will join. Perhaps even one day Mother Russia. And if you think about it, Russia was on our side in 2 world wars, and yet we came to be suspicious of each other. We had these irrational fears. We had spies everywhere. Everything was bugged. The embassies were bugged in Moscow and in Washington. And we have satellites watching each other. All largely irrational. Thanks be to God we didn't blow each other to kingdom come. But now we have this wonderful opportunity. Let's open our arms and our hearts to Turkey and not be afraid, because as you've seen, many of them have read this good book, and many of them believe in God where we've forgotten. Have a look, have a think. I'll say cheerio now and God bless while it's still legal in the UK to say God bless. Take care. See you again soon. All the best. Forgive me if I've upset you or angered you or annoyed you. That wasn't my intention. Cheerio.